So today I'm meeting with Matt Connolly. Matt is a great friend, entrepreneur, and platform builder. He's the CEO of Sønr Global, the world's #1 InsurTech scouting and open innovation platform. So if you want to know about Sønr, it's a subscription-based platform which houses the world's most comprehensive source of innovation in insurance. But, the guys hold some 2 million pieces of information around tech ventures, which are actually relevant often for insurance. So we'll be talking about Matt, parcours. We'll be talking about Sønr Global. And we will also be talking about leadership, mindset, and culture. So let's get started. Hi, everyone. This afternoon, I am with Matt Connolly, great friend, who has been, I guess, in insurance a bit less than I, but has been doing his mark in the insurance sector. Matt has actually a beautiful story as an entrepreneur, as a digital proposition builder, and then designing his own platform to serve our industry. So welcome, Matt, and thank you very much for your time.
Sabine, it's a great pleasure. It's always lovely speaking to you, especially on a podcast.
Yeah. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about you. Who is Matt? What Matt loves to do every day?
Oh my goodness, what a broad question. I think the true Matt is, it sounds somewhat cliched. I think it's a family Matt. It's a proud husband and father. We have a little 3-year-old in our lives, and more than any business chat, he is the light of my life. And my goodness, if I can spend 24/7 with him, I think I probably would, and put business aside and devote all my time and energy into him. So yeah, who is Matt? It's probably, as we all are, we're complex characters, aren't we? So I say all that, but equally, I love to get up super early at my desk, super early, and drive my business forward simultaneously. So I am, in a LinkedIn sense, to answer that question, I'm the founder and CEO of Sønr Global, which is a market intelligence business. We're an InsurTech scanning and open innovation platform, so a SaaS business. But around that, I'm a guy who's been around the block a little while, in terms of a 40-something-year-old guy who has found himself in the world of insurance, lives in Bristol, and loves my sport, the mountains in particular. And has a beautiful 3-year-old that takes all my time and energy where I have it. So that's hopefully a pretty broad answer, Sabine. But that's me in a nutshell, I reckon.
But I also know that your journey started, as I said, as an entrepreneur, and you started as well with your digital business. Can you tell us a little bit more about the other Matt and what got you building your platform?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting one. I think it's even sort of, let's go back even further into my childhood. So I grew up. Entrepreneurship was never so celebrated as it is today. It wasn't a thing that we aspired as kids to be classed as an entrepreneur, or to have the recognition of an entrepreneur. I think as you see today with all the crazy funding rounds and that celebration off the back of it. All I knew is I wanted to set up my own company. And my father, so my parents divorced when I was about 8, and almost kind of the parting message from my dad was set up your own thing. And he was a number 3 employee in a company that went huge, and it became a big global some conglomerate, employing thousands upon thousands of people around the world. And whilst he was very successful with that as number 3 in the business, he recognized he missed the opportunity to be the founder of that company, to set his own thing up. So very much I kind of went through knowing that I wanted to be a founder, if you like, set up my own company. Never knew what I wanted to do in life. And I think I matured a little bit late. I was always very kind of diligent school kid who worked very hard to get a B, if you know what I mean. So I was like a straight B student always, all through my life. And so never the smartest kid, but certainly sort of held my own. And then it got me through into university. Even then, I remember cycling my bike for miles a day, trying to think about what is the thing I wanted to invent. Long and short is I didn't know. And I decided, I went out to live in the States, in Chicago, for a little bit. I was post-university at the time. You could get a visa that took you out there, and you could do, I worked on a fun fair for a little while, and that allowed me to get a visa to then get a job interview. And they offered me the job back in the UK, which I declined because I now had a visa for 12 months in the US. So why would you go back to the UK? This is too much fun. So stayed in the US, randomly I did a couple of odd jobs there. And then I came back to the UK and I worked, I answered this shows my age. I answered an advert in a newspaper, which was highlighted in red pen. So they'd obviously paid extra to get a color advert, and it was in the classifieds, and it was for a sales only, a commission only sales job. I was 21 at the time. I think I'd had my birthday in Chicago, my 21st, which is quite a big thing in the States. And so I came back and I was so chuffed to have got a commission only sales job. I mean, of course I was going to get the job, right? But amazingly, within the first few months, I started earning just a crazy amount of money. And I don't know whether it was my voice, the script I followed, my confidence, just complete luck, whatever it was, it worked out really well for me. And one of the partners of that company was a digital agency, a web design agency, now known as LBI, who are the largest digital agency in the world. And so I got a job. I moved over from one company into the sister company, if you like, or the partner company. And I got a job working for a chap called Luke, who is the CEO of that business still. And he was one of the partners of the business at the time. And so I reported directly into him as a strategist. And I worked there for a couple of years. And I had this thing about, I want to set up my own company. The only experience I had in life was working for a digital agency, apart from working in crisp factories as a kid, but I didn't think that was terribly relevant for my world to be. And so what I did is I left London. I pulled up the roots. I moved to Bristol, which is where I find myself still, 18 years later. And I set up a web design company. So that's all we were. So me and a chap who I knew from London days, we set up a company with great ambitions. It was called Enable, and it was a web design company that was going to deliver strategy. Strategy, creative, and tech for the web. I mean, it's 2003. It's a long time ago, and those things probably meant a little bit more then. Roll forward, I don't know, maybe 5 years, and we found ourselves growing a very successful business. We'd come at the industry with a view to wanting to work with charities, not-for-profits, NGOs, and trying to make the world a better place through the collective of employees, as opposed to the sum of our individual parts should be greater as a unit, as a business, than us all individually working for charities. That's kind of the ethos. And we were able to attract, as almost a social enterprise, but not in a kind of legal sense. We were just doing a lot of good with our work. We were able to attract talent out of London and joining us in Bristol. And we soon became the number one digital agency in the UK. And it's wonderful. We not poke off the number one spot, and we did some amazing things for amazing clients. But it's really and again, this is my first business, and truly, and you hear this a lot from founders when they give advice, and I'd never heard this advice. It's employ people who are more talented than yourself, and then sort of ... bracket shamelessly exploit them. The last bit we didn't do, but it was very much we we recruited some incredible people who helped us take this business sort of global, almost it felt like overnight, and it was a very unusual position to be in as a 20-something-year-old. Having a board, having a group of people around you, which did such incredible high caliber work for such global businesses, from insurance all the way through to charities, and actually that probably is an important link. We started looking to exit the business, and in order to do that, we needed to up our turnover. To up our turnover, we simply couldn't work with any more charities or not-for-profits. We worked with them all. We had Greenpeace and Amnesty and all these amazing clients, and so we had to move out into other sectors, and that was really interesting for us. And insurance was one of those. So we touched on the industry, but it was one of many that we worked within. And so really for me that's where my journey started, and that's where kind of the entrepreneurial bug got me, and then I moved from Enable into for a little while, sort of acting as a grey hair, as a kind of non-exec, as a board advisor for these companies, and I felt very exposed and young, and supposedly as this lead strategist in this lead agency in the UK, and people are asking me, who's the next Uber, who's the next Airbnb, who's the next. And really, jumping a few years ahead, that's kind of what got me to Sønr. So it's can we quantifiably answer that question? Can we use data to interpret market trends, identify who those particular companies are that will be the next unicorns, or whatever label we want to give to them? But rather than just have an opinion, can we back that up with data?
So fascinating, because you've gone through a very long journey, starting with your dad, a person who said, be a founder. Then you mentioned as well, you're a family man with a beautiful 3-year-old. And I know when we chat, we know that you also are a little bit of a digital nomad. We don't know which country you are going to end up at, but at some point you may actually hop various regions. Purpose being clearly embedded in everything you do, in the business you've built. Then there is the other angle around 1 + 1 = 5, I heard as well. And lastly, still, as somebody who's done so well, you have the imposter syndrome in some ways. Sure. So when you look at your path, what are the lessons you've learned which has enabled you to build Sønr to be a great and respected business today?
Thank you for saying that, Sabine. It means a lot. It's interesting. We both you and I, and maybe even I turn that on its head and ask you in a second the same or similar question. But I think it's interesting when we speak with entrepreneurs all the time. And I was chatting with a couple of founders in Brazil. I'm fascinated by LATAM and what's going on out there from an InsurTech perspective, and the opportunities that arise as a result. And I was chatting with a couple of founders last week who reminded me of I think it's a Bill Gates quote about you will always overestimate what you can achieve in 1 year, or what you will achieve in 1 year, but you'll always underestimate what you can achieve in 10. And that's something that I totally believe, but I also never listen to, and I need to remind myself of that. So I'm an incredibly impatient man, and that doesn't manifest in any bad way apart from within myself. And so I'll always want to be pushing and pushing and pushing, and I'm never ever satisfied. Sounds like the Hamilton play, doesn't it?
Need for perfection.
Yeah, that's right. And that always striving for platinum. And I think that they are terrible traits in somebody, but they are also great traits for an entrepreneur. And I hope I'm able to do that with a level of empathy for those around me, as opposed to you see some terrible leaders, and I'd like to believe that, and I hope that sort of the staff retention we've had both within the current business and also my past agency sort of supports my belief that I'm able to create a good culture and be a good leader within my organization. But those traits certainly drive me forward, to the extent of it's really important. And Matt, our managing partner here at Sønr, but previously my business partner for many years in the agency world, we'd often have to stop and remind ourselves to check in with one another and have that high five moment, because we were constantly almost unimpressed with our own position and success. And I think that's okay, but as long as you have those check-in moments, and as long as you're fair on yourself, otherwise it's a pretty dark existence. So it's one of the big lessons for me is around kind of motivation. I think it's just making sure that you, depending on when and how you want to work, but you are constantly pushing yourself to achieve better, but simultaneously do check in and look after yourself en route. And I think that you hear about resilience, don't you, in entrepreneurship, and the importance of that, and being okay with no and failure and all those things. And so yes to all of that, but I think that continuous drive and having those ambitions, which lots of people don't, and that's okay too. But if you have that ambition, go and get after it. Don't just talk about it. And as kind of promised, turning that on itself, Sabine. And what are your thoughts? What are your lessons? Because I mean, equally, you're an incredibly successful person in the insurance community and beyond. And so for me, I look to you, with huge regard. And I would love to know what's allowed you to create this position for yourself and the success that you have off the back of that.
Well, thank you for asking, Matt. It's one of those interesting paths because we have similarities. My father is a founder, an entrepreneur in fashion, what you would call a modeliste. The person who created the first prototype for clothes. So in France, he works with most of the top brands and created the first prototype for catwalk and prêt-à-porter for some of the collection. So when I was a kid, I was wearing, amazing fashion, a lot of prototypes. Some of them I keep them for my goddaughter when she's 18. And, the key thing about my dad is he said to me, you can't be a top model. I will not allow you to be a top model because I've seen what that can do to people. My only choices were to become a consultant or banker or a lawyer. And so I came to the UK 30 years ago, doing Erasmus. And I worked for big companies for 18 years. And actually, I have to thank a group of investors who were retired, CEOs of one of the biggest banks in the world, actually, who had invested significant amount of money in a fintech startup. And they said to me, Sabine, it's time for you to give back. I said, okay, interesting. Okay, so let's go and give back. And literally, I left my cushy job and went into this fintech startup to try to understand what fintech was about, but also learn how you grow and fail in startup, because literally I've seen 101 what a fintech startup is about. But after 1 year of learning, I realized the things called fintech would happen in insurance. So at the end of 2015, I set up my own business and said, you know what, I'm going to be advising insurance companies to understand how technology can transform them. And literally, I was at the cusp of InsurTech. Startup Bootcamp approached different people, but heard my name in the market and gave me the MD role. And I built this to become one of the leading accelerators in Europe. And I did the same in Connecticut with Hartford InsurTech Hub. And 6 years, so you know how accelerators work, right? It's investment-based. And so you run 3 years of acceleration based off your sponsors and your investors. So I did that in Europe. I did that in the United States. So I was done after 6 years. And I think it was time for me to move on. And so in 2020, I set up, as you know, Alchemy Crew as one of my projects. And so what drives me is the relentless, I'm relentless around I would say it's not success, but doing a difference in the world. I love the startups. I love my InsurTechs. I've accelerated over 100, and every day I would love to help them, whether to get their funding or make sure that, they are doing okay. You must have heard that Ziguros got acquired by HSB. So great announcement for me. But, for me, it's enabling those businesses to achieve their outcome, whether it's an exit or making a difference out there. But it's also about self-confidence and, I think, determination. In my case, Black female woman in insurance, one of the few, I guess, I also want to inspire other women to say, you know what, just follow your path and you will see, you will get somewhere. And I'm very fortunate that I've been working with some of the leading insurance companies in the world. And there are 5,000 insurance companies. For sure, I work with 30. It's not small during the past 6 years. But that also shows those are the ones who have wanting to transform and change. And we know it's not easy for anyone, partly legacy businesses and incumbent who have had to embrace innovation and digitization with a lot of legacy legislation and regulation. It's not easy. But I am really inspired as well by those businesses who actually trusted me with bringing, innovation or transformation, or I'll say partnership and collaboration and investment opportunities to them. Like you, I think being able to make an impact, how big or how small that might be in the world we are in, that's what keeps me awake at night. And having fun, actually, Matt.
It's important, right? It's really important. But then that's another thing that I recognize. I am much better at encouraging others to have fun than doing myself, I think. And I might just be in a certain mindset right now saying that. But it's but I know how important that is, because if you're not having fun and you're not living another life outside of work, you become a one-dimensional person, and that's never going to be healthy for you. And very much that kind of London working culture was a perfect place to start. Commission-only sales into kind of agency land, where you would leave your blazer on the back of your chair and sneak out at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, only to be back in at 6 a.m. And it was a terrible way to live. It really was. And so running a I guess being able to be the having control of the DNA of a company and setting culture is a great responsibility. And I think one of the most important things to be able to achieve successfully as a founder. And once you have that right, I think the rest of the business will flow. I really do. And fun has to be a large part of that. And in fact, I referenced Matt F. As opposed to me being
dear Matt F. Yes,
the other Matt in Sønr, and it's one of the great things he brings to the party, and sometimes it's as a founder, especially in those early days, you have your feet firmly under the desk as opposed to on it, and you become quite operational in growing the business, and as part of that, you're focused on your KPIs and your targets and your growth metrics and all of those things. And actually, it's quite easy to forget about having fun. And he's done a great job of continuously reminding me and us to set the kind of the fun mark and make sure that we are going out and whether it's during COVID time, it was taking the dog for a walk as a group or whatever it be. And so there's lots of good things that he certainly reminds us of, but it's an important one. Hey,
I love talking to Matt. I love talking to Matt F. The interesting thing is when we jump on the phone on Friday, the hour just disappear. It's like, Matt, we should actually talk about our action points, right? At some point. And as you said, he has such a wonderful balance.
Sure.
And beautiful art.
Totally. He does. And it's an interesting one for me. There's always, I had a best mate growing up, and in my first company, I even though he worked in the same industry, I never wanted to employ him because of the what if moment. What if it all goes wrong? What if I have to fire my friend? What if it doesn't work out and he's made redundant? What if? And it's really interesting. Moving into a 40-year-old from a kind of that sort of 20-year-old mindset where actually Matt and I have been friends for, I don't know, in fact, from LinkedIn just reminded me this week that we've been connected for 13 years. So I don't know. Let's say we've been friends for 13 years. We were roommates at one point. We shared a flat in Bristol, and then to have the opportunity to work with the guy. I remember before launching Tolt, which then became Sønr. We were up on my roof deck, which is kind of a couple of floors above my office here, and we were chatting away. And I remember scribbling on a great big piece of paper around, this is my business plan. You know, that's probably about as formal as my business plan has ever been. And we just chatted through this on a nice sunny day with a beer in hand. And I was like, come on, Matt, quit your job. Let's get involved. Let's do this from the day one together. And it took a few years until, understandably, it's not everybody's cup of tea just to throw away their career and try a startup, right? But for me, it was a no-brainer. It's something I'd done before, and it was easy to kind of conceptualize. But but being able to work with Matt, he came on board a couple of years ago, and being able to work with him again is for the first time, and not having those fears of the what if, and what should happen, because actually it's about building a business together, and that's not just me and him, it's all the people who work for us, and it's our journey and our path, and it took a little while to recognize that.
Important actually as well, because when you look at my team and some of the people I'm working with today came back to work with me after doing their 4 or 5 years in insurance. I feel so grateful of their trust, but the same. I said, if this doesn't go the way it should go, you have this, this fear syndrome because you want to take care of people and you want to do the best for them. But what also I'm learning is, everybody who is in the team right now wants to do the best for themselves, but also for the company, and they want to build their own companies. And I said, it's your own to build. And so we start with that. So that takes me into culture and leadership, because you talk to so many ventures, Matt, and you build a business which is growing, and it cannot grow without people. You told us it's about talent and actually working with smarter people than you. So can you tell us what you've seen working best from leadership, culture, mindset viewpoint from your business and the business you talk to every single day?
Sure. I think I think often is the case, and you'll hear this time and time again. It's about setting a vision, having a purpose within that vision, and then ensuring that vision is bought into and possibly even co-created by those within the team. If you have that purpose-led vision, you have everybody's buy into that, and you set a clear pathway to achieving that. Whether you're ahead of it or you're behind it, then everybody will rally and do their best to make that happen. If you're employing or you're working with the smartest minds that you can get hold of, and that have the capability, or at least can develop those capabilities to achieve what you need from them, then you're going to hit that. And for me, it's as simple as that. It's making sure that that you line up that vision with your colleagues, and I've always had, and I know there are certainly different types of leadership, but I've always been I don't know, maybe it's easy for me to say, and maybe it's not so true, but I always feel it's somewhat of a democracy in terms of us as a culture of a business, and really, rather than employ people to fulfill specific roles, I'd rather employ exceptional talent, understand with them where they are best deployed, and allow them to sort of function with that kind of with that intent. And what that does is it allows them to do the thing they love the best, and invariably they're the best at, and it allows us to then create the right kind of landscape, or the right sort of resourcing landscape to achieve our vision. So it's an interesting one. I feel like I ought to come clean as well. So one of your recent members of your team who has rejoined you is somebody that I loved when I first met them working in Startup Bootcamp. So as part of your team, and for years I've tried to woo over into Sønr. Because I think, but like you, right? It's you've recognized the talent there, and it's absolutely someone to keep hold of. And then hearing he'd rejoined, I was like, I couldn't be happier. But also, there's part of me which is like, Okay, you didn't come and join Sønr. But it's one of those where if you see wonderful people out in the market who can make a difference to our industry, then my goodness, let's try and sweep them up. And if you have the capital to be able to pull them into your company, set that vision and get them behind that, then wonderful. So so for me, it's all around that kind of purpose-led vision setting, and going back to that sort of social enterprise comment earlier. One of the big struggles that I've had within Sønr is are we truly making an impact? Because it's very direct when you work for charities and not for profits and all the rest. It's and we talk a very good game within the world of insurance about how important insurance is and how we protect all them, and I think I believe that, but I think we have a long way to go still to really broaden that out. And you and I often talk about kind of trends we're seeing in the marketplace, and one of the big trends that we're seeing, which I'm absolutely behind, is insurance driven towards underserved markets, and whether that's kind of ethnic communities, it's LGBTQ plus, or it's like Marshmallow guys, even with their starting about the kind of the immigrants coming into the UK, and the fact that to get a car insurance, it was at a ridiculous premium, and they'll be able to undercut that. Whatever the business is, I'm much more aware and excited by that connection between insurance and societal change. And so for me, being able to get behind that as a purpose and being able to really drive the business in the direction of supporting those companies succeed, just as you alluded to yourself, that's exciting for me.
So important.
I'm being joined by my dog.
Yes,
that's
lovely dog.
Doesn't come across on a podcast, but hello, Bear.
Hello, Bear. So you also mentioned a key topic, a key theme, which is affecting us all, which is, I think, sustainability. And when you start looking at the UN SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the ESG, which stand for environmental, social, and governance metrics, you have to look at underserved market segments. And also you need to look at other things than just, climate change and emission and environment, but also at safety and at diversity, equality, and inclusion. So how do you see the world we are living in, the companies we're working with, and the startup embracing DEI at the moment, Matt?
So I think the answer is slowly, and probably not at a sufficient pace, but that is always the way, right? So I think it's I'm looking forward to COP26 and what will come out of that. I think it's already creating good discussion. Sorry, in the background now, I'm not sure if you can hear it. It's my thirsty dog having a drink. So hopefully he won't continue too much longer. But I think like with any change is difficult, but we don't have a choice with this, and therefore it will only continue going in one direction until we do something about it. And I talk about my son, but it's the same for us as it is our parents and whoever is around us in communities. It's those that are in the most kind of vulnerable and underprivileged, I guess, parts of our society that will be affected first. And that in the past has always created almost a level of acceptance from the kind of the middle and upper classes and a level of tolerance and it'll be okay kind of adage. But this time around, it's something that can't wait and change needs to happen. And it's more important than any of this stuff that we're talking about on a day in, day out basis, right? So big business has huge responsibility, and yes, while startups provide opportunity, and I think it's good old Boris, talking about kind of investment into startups that will help change the world, and there will be. There will be the Netflixes, the Googles, the Ubers, who are coming through in doing some incredible things to turn the tides. But big business has the ultimate responsibility. They are set up, they are already established, and they have the capital to make a difference. And they possibly also have the largest need and impact on the society around us as well to make that change. So yeah, I think what we're going to see is a flood of InsurTechs that are innovating the space. But I also hope, and we're seeing it with some of the health businesses already, and I know some of your clients, the same. You're working with these guys on these projects, but we're seeing change happen. But it's happening slowly, but that will only need to accelerate because the impact's going to get more and more severe as time goes on.
Yeah, it will accelerate as time goes on. And yes, I think I would echo what Mr. Boris Johnson is saying, that the startups and the entrepreneurs and the founders are the pillar of growth in a lot of industries and a lot of economies, representing often 70% of the working population. So what would be your last word of wisdom, your checklist for anyone wanting to learn from your experience to build a successful business?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's about finding your own path. I'm never, if we talk about imposter syndrome, I'm never particularly comfortable about saying, "Hey, listen to me, and here's my advice." But it's about finding your ambition, something that either you're passionate about or that you can be passionate about. But this is the worst advice, so forgive me. But I don't think it's for everybody, and I think that's also really important, right? It's pretty punishing being an entrepreneur, and you get punch drunk to it, which is great, and it's easy once you're through. I don't know, maybe the other side of it, and it's so it's less risk, and it's easy to kind of spout words of wisdom, but it's a path that I think it's well worth taking. Just like a commission only sales job. I mean, nobody wants that, right? But it's an amazing kind of learning curve. If you're able to get involved, you have the ability to enter the startup space. There's no time like today, right? I mean, there's capital galore. There's an absolute glut of money out there. With investors who are willing to help you shape the business of the future, so give you that advice and steer and pathway. There's also a world that really needs support and help, and that's not just the insurance world. That's a whole bunch of opportunity out there to reshape and transform the world that we live in from industry down. And really bring those two together. If you are a creative business person, or you fancy yourself that you might be that, give it a try. As long as you're not risking, life and limb, and potentially hurting people en route, go for it, because now is the time. And I go back to the days where, I set up my first business because I kind of thought that's what I was meant to do, because that was the lasting advice from my father. But yeah, no, it's a wonderful time to be an entrepreneur, to the extent of, I'm running Sønr, and I all I want to do is set up more businesses. I mean, that's all I want to do, but I know I must focus. And that's, probably one of the rules of being an entrepreneur, and then they talk about Alchemy Crew being one of your projects. And, but I know that it's 20 hours a day and it will be for a time being. And it's the same with Sønr. We were a young company still, and very soon, and I'm looking at kind of a couple of months, it will be time to put my feet on the table as opposed to under the table, because actually I don't need to do that operational piece anymore. We have the team, we have the structure and the governance within the business, and we can grow that. So yeah, any parting words? I appreciate this. It's been more than a few words. It's been a few paragraphs, but if you feel the inclination to make change happen, and you are prepared to roll your sleeves up and graft tirelessly for probably a good chunk of your life, then go out there and do it, because there's a lot of money to be had if you're looking to scale your business, and there's a lot of opportunities to make change happen.
Yeah, thank you for those wise words, Matt. I think when you look at the world we are in, which, we are in a world of uncertainty. Uncertainty is not going to stop tomorrow. And to manage uncertainty, you need to have choice. And I think as entrepreneurs, we know we can create our own choices with the business we built. For sure, Alchemy Crew is my main project, my main business. However, what I also learned is that, as you know, I manage my personal brand quite carefully, and this can be monetized too. And sure. So, when I look at initiative, entrepreneurial projects, they are still linked to one another. So it's just learning to monetize better.
That's really interesting. But you're right about your personal brand in the market. I mean, you particularly, right? And there are a handful of people. If you were to talk about InsurTech and map that to individuals in the market, Sabine VdL is you're always up there in that group, and it's a very interesting. It's a very interesting position. Do you think so? To turn the tables again, if we have time, hopefully we do.
Yeah, no.
And to turn the tables, how? So you got into InsurTech early on. So you're saying, was it 6 years ago, maybe?
Yes,
that
6
you
years
kind of
ago.
stepped into that.
Correct.
6 years ago, and then did you? So you and moving from the fintech space, recognizing the opportunity. Did you think about personal brand from the off, or is that something that is almost a side effect from the work that you were doing within the insurance space?
So interestingly enough, my approach in insurance. So at that point, I already was 18 years in insurance. Mm-hmm. And one thing I do believe is that selling, for me, is a market-led approach. It's a conversation. It's trust. It's about credibility. It's about authenticity. So that is my baseline. And yes, when I went into InsurTech, I would say when you start building accelerator and talking to ventures and having to be out there, it's a de facto, I would say, byproduct of identifying and I would say recruiting some of the best business out there. When you have to scout 20,000 ventures globally to only select 100, you have to do a little bit of marketing, actually quite a lot of marketing. So I learned a lot during those 6 years to be out there, to talk about my vision, to talk about what would make a difference in insurance. And I realized I quite like it. Mm-hmm. So I guess
you have to. If you didn't, what a miserable existence that would be for you, right? How do you keep track of people? Because you must have met. So you're right. We I talk with founders all the time, and we have some incredible clients around the world, and that keeps me very busy. And we have a team there, but I can only imagine also with the amount of travel that you used to do in a pre-COVID. I'm sure that will be coming again. You must be meeting so many people, like tenfold those that I do. How do you keep those relationships, and how do you ensure some of those are kept in a meaningful way?
So I think rule number one is that people know that the door is always open if they want to reach out and have a 15 or 20 minutes chat with me. For sure, I cannot talk to 20,000 people every year. But, when you look at my startups, if they need something, they know they can reach out. And just recently, one is raising funding. And so send an email across. So that, you have to leave that door open for people to reach out when they want to. But they also know that everybody is busy and everybody is running a business. So therefore, you're not going to be after them like small children either. So I would say my approach has for sure a good CRM, newsletters, as you know, having a great ecosystem person. I've always worked with ecosystem managers, leads within my team, where we can tango and make sure that we take care of our ventures. And then when, that is a venture side, but also I work a lot with investors and I work a lot with corporates. Investors the same. Usually investors, as you know, want deal flow, and they know that when they want to reach out, they can, we can set up 15 minutes, 20 minutes. However, it's again, the outward communication, which becomes important. So how do you build your system to be present in people's mind? Whether that is on LinkedIn, on Twitter, other media, in addition to your newsletter. And you have a great newsletter yourself, Matt.
Thank you. It's become a, I don't know, poison chalice, is that the right term? And so one of the things that also, as I went through a hard grafting B student through school was I had special dyslexia lessons. And so which is ironic because my mum's an English teacher. Okay, so as I started this newsletter, I think I read maybe Anand's newsletter from CB Insights, and I thought it's wonderful. And I hold those guys in high regard, and particularly his ability to sign off a newsletter that says "I love you." and. I was just like, how ballsy. I mean, that's really brave into the big kind of enterprise SaaS world. And as a big fan of that and recognize the value that writing this stuff, because, we see, our whole business is around tracking market trends and activity and understanding, everything from fundraising through to partnerships. And my goodness, we're such a privileged position to be not only accessing all that information, but working with clients to understand how they connect with that information. And for us to be able to present that, in a newsletter, so it's every fortnight, I thought, what a wonderful thing. So I wrote the first few, and it's amazing how quickly subscribers sort of came on board, to the point where I was like, okay, let's keep trying. And I didn't particularly enjoy the time, because I spend an entire Friday every other week writing this, right? That's a tenth of my working
it's a
time.
big commitment. I agree.
Inordinate amount of time.
And when I do mine, it's the same. It's a whole Saturday gone.
Crazy, right? Saturday. You're so good, Sabine. And then and then over the last 2 years, so those numbers have now grown up into, we're in the 30,000s of people who subscribe to this, and it blows my mind. And interestingly, some days I wake up and I love writing it. Last Friday, you've never met a more, I was almost angry the fact that I had to spend the time, because I wanted to do some other stuff, but it's so valuable for the business. And around those kind of keeping conversations alive, everybody I meet will say, oh, Matt, I read that So News that you write. Is it every Friday or every other Friday that it's sent? And so you really know that they genuinely do read it. And it's just by chance.
It's around at 5, right? It's around 5 o'clock on Friday. So
so that's what everyone says as well. Yeah, and everyone says that. It's like, it's the perfect timing, end of day on a Friday. And that's like, who knew, right? That was just by chance. That's when I wrote it, and that's when basically it's published as soon as I finished it, whether that's 3 o'clock or that's 6 o'clock, depending on how many meetings I have in the Friday to interrupt that journey. That's when it goes out. But it's wonderful, and for us, because we're a platform business, we embed links within that click through. If you would like more information on a company profile, you click through, and if you're a customer, you go straight to the profile within Sønr. If you're not a customer, then lo and behold, you get a landing page that says, here are the reasons why you should be a customer, take a trial. And so it's the perfect lead generation as well as kind of brand building piece for us. But yeah, no, I'm with you. Newsletters they're great fun, but it's hard work. But yeah, but equally, and it's the same for you, right? It's I only tried a couple of times in the last few years of having a ghostwriter or someone else trying to write it for me. And it's just, I'm sure it's the same for us all, but I have such an individual style of writing, and nobody could, and I'm sure there are people who write a whole load better than I do, but to keep that consistent voice is really difficult. So yeah, so I think I'm, no matter how much I have my feet on the desk and doing the strategic side of the business and driving that opportunity forward, I think I'm wedded to this So News newsletter for a long time still.
Please continue, because it's a beautiful and fun newsletter to read. So when I'm in the city, and I jump in a Uber, an electric Uber, I actually try to finish off things. It's like, okay, when I'm done, for my 20-30 minutes ride, I said, okay, let me check what Matt is talking about. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Maybe we need to do a podcast of that, Sabine. Me and you, we could do the weekly news or the fortnightly news.
I would love to. Let's do it.
So then maybe it's not maybe you don't have to get car sick reading on your phone. Maybe we can just do the audio version. You can plug in and listen in your Uber.
That would be great.
There you go. Maybe that's the future.
So thank you, Matt.
And that's just another thing. Yeah, sorry. No, not at all. And no, Sabine, it's sorry, a joy. Sorry, I think you were wrapping up and I was jumping in with more.
No problem. So let me wrap up. So thank you very much, Matt, for a wonderful podcast. We have discovered who you are, who is Sønr Global. So if people want to reach out, by the way, to find Matt Connolly, it's We Are Matt. And if you want to find out about Sønr, it's Sønr Global, SONR.global. Thank
Perfect.
You.
Sabine, it was a great pleasure. Lovely to see you. Chat soon.
If you like this podcast, subscribe now, share with your friends, and if you enjoyed it, please give it a 5-star review. Also, if you want to cover any specific subject with me, contact me on Instagram under Sabine VdL Officials or LinkedIn under Sabine VdL. Thank you.